First, Council for Geostrategy team, thank you all really for bringing us all together once again here at Lancaster House, our small bijou residence that the Foreign Office likes to use to welcome our international friends and allies. It's a real delight for me to be able to take a few moments to share some thoughts in my capacity as the Minister for the Indo-Pacific in the Foreign Office, and as you say first, a now well-known and often teased strong advocate of our Royal Navy. I mean, if there's an opportunity to go to sea, maybe that would be the solution to many, many people's challenges. I'm always happy to take up that challenge. But before I do, I think I would like to set out, which I always do, and I know all of you who are not in uniform would do, is to thank you and all of those who serve in the Royal Navy, above and below the surface, for all that you do quietly to keep our citizens and UK interests secure every single day. Because it is the case that all too often the Royal Navy's continuous deployments go unnoticed, indeed unknown to most, and therefore unsung. Of course, many of us in this room understand the reasons why that must often be so, but it's been really interesting as a politician, someone with a constituency, to watch those who never knew, or indeed asked, what your sailors do, to sit up and watch in amazement as those young men and women aboard HMS Diamond shared those dramatic images of their elimination of drones attacking civilian shipping in the Red Sea. In awe, and honestly with pride, the Royal Navy and her exploits are being talked about in the pub, I can guarantee you that one, but also on dog walks by middle-aged ladies, because I went on one just the other day, as literally young and old are reminded of the threats to our assumed easy way of life. And nor has the tireless work of our Royal Navy gone unnoticed by our adversaries, or indeed those whom they seek to crush. As the challenges proliferate, we see your men and women step up across vast areas of ocean and an increasing breadth of activity. Most critically, of course, our submariners deployed 24/7, 365 days a year on our continuous at-sea deterrent, silently patrolling those global waters, the effective deterrent our adversaries know is there, somewhere, always ready to defend. Protecting the freedom of navigation on which we all depend, whether it's threatened at the core of the Royal Navy's work, HMS Diamond, of course, demonstrating that at the centre of our UK critical role in this US-led international coalition, upholding that basic, we said a lot, don't we? Upholding freedom of navigation, those three words, really, really important, in those busy shipping lanes of the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Now, they're also sharing analysis from the UK Hydrographic Office, allowing US planners to establish the temporary pier needed to deliver aid to Gaza. RFA Cardigan Bay was playing a critical part there. And our sailors aboard HMS Tamar and HMS Spey in particular, working with the countries I'm interrelating with most every day in the Indo-Pacific, helping to build and sustain those blue economies that are so critical, and they're supported by the UK's £500 million Blue Planet Fund. But they're also supporting small island states responding to shocks. The crew of HMS Spey recently volunteered their free time to work alongside Tonga's National Visually Impaired Association in the wake of a devastating volcanic eruption and tsunami. I can tell you they have got friends for life on that island. It was really touching to discover the affection with which that work that they'd just done literally over the weekend to make a difference. And those are just a few examples of some of the recent work that you have all been leading. So I know you'll all agree that it's really great to hear the PM announcement of 2.5% of GDP for defence spending, and a first picture yesterday from the Defence Secretary of what that might look like for the Royal Navy. But as the Foreign Secretary said last week, this is a world more dangerous, more volatile, more confrontational than most of us have ever known. So we need to face up to that fact and act accordingly. Not in a year or two, not in a few months, but now. So what is going to be vital is that the new integrated procurement model, which we have set out, must turn government's relationship with industry into a true strategic partnership. The 2.5% commitment will allow long-term planning on shipbuilding, for instance, which will be vital to our ability to get the next generation of ships and submarines into service as quickly as possible. These platforms will carry the innovative inventions which will give us that critical military advantage. So we must now make industry the sixth domain of our defences. Whilst government, or rather the taxpayer, those ladies keep telling me that when we go dog walking, it's their money, not ours, they are funding the Royal Navy And it's our defence and security industries which deliver the infrastructure, the skilled workforce, the platforms, the weapons and the kit that your sailors need to be able to deploy. This first Sea Lords Conference is taking place as our world becomes increasingly dangerous and unstable. And we must not divorce foreign and economic policy from domestic politics. All over the Western world, we see the rise of political movements that want us to pull up the drawbridge, claiming we'll be better off if we just focus purely on domestic concerns. But this is the wrong answer, because what happens abroad matters directly to our citizens. Our approach must not be to ignore the rise of these movements. It must be to deal with what has caused them to grow so that we can engage with the world and therefore safeguard our national interests. So it's more important than ever that our understanding of the strategic importance of the maritime, from the margins of the conversation into the heart of foreign policy, is centre stage. The impacts of instability in the Middle East, aggression in the Black Sea, military and economic coercion in the South China Sea, and that double-edged sword of emerging technologies are rippling out across the globe. Now, households everywhere are feeling the pressure of all of this on their budgets. Fuel, food and fertiliser price spikes, courtesy of Putin's illegal war, have shaken the economies of all, but of course the poorest, have suffered the most. Now, governments have had to underwrite these cost of living hikes where they can, and I think so after a long period of perhaps naive optimism, people now understand once again why defence needs to be prioritised, and indeed that the Royal Navy has a central role to play. Credible deterrence across these many unstable theatres requires our Royal Navy, alongside our allies and friends, to be fitter than ever, to sustain free and open navigation routes, protecting undersea cables and energy, and assisting many countries to assure the sovereignty of their EEZs. We must work with our US allies to take some of the strain in support of their leadership to assure the security of so many, from NATO on their east to Indo-Pacific friends on their west. As I travel across the Indo-Pacific, all my conversations with counterparts have the challenge of maritime security and protection on the agenda. For the UK, our work across the Indo-Pacific continues to be a priority, as we set out in our Integrated Review Refresh last year, because the Euro-Atlantic and the Indo-Pacific are indivisible. So together we're standing up for our shared security, freedom and prosperity, because there is nothing selfless about wanting to focus on the 2/3 of global maritime trade which passes through Indo-Pacific waters. We are leaning in as a result through our role as dialogue partners in ASEAN and in IORA, as well as with the Pacific Island Forum. Our bilateral maritime dialogues are now with Brunei, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Maldives, Philippines and Vietnam, and they're going from strength to strength, with maritime domain awareness and then work on how to manage policing these waters once that malign activity is known at the heart of what we're doing. But sadly, we know there's a great deal more to do. As the Defence Secretary highlighted yesterday, our second Naval Littoral Response Group is hard at work, keeping the Indian Ocean safe and open. And the challenge we have set ourselves with the US is to help our Australian counterparts develop a nuclear-powered submarine fleet, which is going to require an enormous commitment from our British industries. It is they who are building new relationships with Australian companies, universities, state governments, to prepare for the SSN AUKUS fleet. We must never forget why we all agreed to do this. It's because nuclear-powered submarines can travel greater distances, be undetected for longer, and therefore increase that credible deterrence to those who would wish to disrupt or indeed deny the free flows of trade to Australia and therefore all our economic security. Now, the hard work of getting SSN AUKUS underway has been kicked off. We've now seen £4 billion worth of contracts to BAE Systems, Rolls-Royce and Babcock for those first elements of the UK's SSN AUKUS submarine programme, but this is just the tip of the iceberg, not only in financial terms, but in the uplift in infrastructure and in skills which will be needed to deliver this on time. This truly will need to be a national endeavour across all three nations for us to meet the challenge that we have set ourselves. At its peak, AUKUS Pillar 1 is expected to support more than 21,000 jobs in the UK and will need Australia to grow a skilled workforce which presently does not exist. So it's great to see the Royal Navy welcoming Australian personnel as they begin their specialised training. Pillar 2 is also getting into its stride. We've run a first series of successful AI and autonomous undersea capability trials with our AUKUS family, and later this year we're going to be conducting trilateral maritime autonomy exercises. We're also now considering other countries that might contribute to AUKUS Pillar 2 projects, with Japan in the first instance. The AUKUS Industry Forum, Defence Investor Network, and the Electronic Warfare Innovation Challenge are all now up and running. These are there to help improve and strengthen that engagement and real understanding between government and industry. And I'll keep saying it, it's industry that builds the tools our sailors must have to deliver the effect we need. So we must get better at demonstrating that government understands that if we are to be able to go faster, to get ahead of the threats that we see growing around us. As part of that effort, from next year, the UK, US and Japan will hold regular trilateral military exercises. This will build on the continuous deployment of HMS Spey and Tamar, as I say, in the Indo-Pacific, and it's part of that commitment we've made with the USA in the Atlantic Declaration and with Japan in the Hiroshima Accords. Next year, of course, we'll also bring CSG 25. Maybe I could hitch a lift on that first. Maybe that's the solution. Our aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales is going to be deployed to the region at the head of the Carrier Strike Group, including a port visit in Japan. And I can tell you first, there's a long list of requests of where else they'd like you to go and visit. Some of the smaller island states might be tricky to park, but we'll have to work on that one. This work is immensely important in and of itself, but of course it's also increasingly important in light of the increasing number of incidents involving unsafe conduct against vessels in the South China Sea over recent months. That includes actions by Chinese vessels against the Philippines Coast Guard, which have endangered lives, caused damage to civilian vessels, and of course made headlines around the world as tensions continue to mount over the second Thomas Shoal. We expect all states to uphold UNCLOS. It has a vital role in upholding peace, prosperity and security by making sure that we all play by a set of rules designed and agreed to guarantee all our futures. So we will support our partners to shine a light on those actions that heighten tension, risk escalation, and threaten regional peace and stability. Indeed, from the Caribbean to the Pacific Ocean, the Royal Navy's Maritime Domain Awareness Programme sets the global gold standard when it comes to building the trust, the partnerships and the capabilities that we need to plan ahead and respond to everything from illegal fishing to those state threats. We hope to expand this shared security expertise further because we all need to look beyond what seems most alarming in a headline today to scan the horizon for what should really be keeping us up at night so that we can get the right pieces into place across multiple theatres. Whilst it may seem trite to say together we are stronger, from NATO to the MDA Five Eyes Partnership Forum, we should recognise that even when trust has been strained and our resolve tested, we hold firm. We continue to work our interagency cooperation on integrated defence and security, and indeed on counter-terrorism, because let's be clear about what's at stake right now. For us Brits, our identity as a maritime nation is a deep and enduring part of our view of ourselves. And around the globe, others are looking to us to make good on the promise of that legacy for our shared future, by defending the values we hold dear, not just for ourselves, but for all those who long to feel the benefits of freedom and prosperity in their lives as well. Indeed, they are looking to all of us as determined adversaries and ruthless opportunists seek to bludgeon their bravery into submission, to support them as they are brave enough to stand up for the future that they want to shape for their citizens. So we need to ensure that our Navy and Armed Forces have what they need to do so. For all of us right now, of course, we face a defining litmus test in Ukraine. As we strive to sustain our unwavering support and galvanise others to their cause, it's important that we recognise that it is at sea where the Allied contribution is felt most keenly, combined with the Ukrainians' indomitable spirit. The UK is providing 60 small boats alongside our mighty Storm Shadows, uncrewed sea systems, and some £2 billion is earmarked to become Ukraine's largest supplier of drones. Alongside Norway, we are proud to be leading a new maritime capability coalition. Together, we're providing mine detection drones, raiding craft, seeking helicopters, helping Ukraine to build its navy, deploy a marine corps, and defend its sovereign waters. And we know that it's making a difference. Ukraine has struck the Kremlin's naval HQ in Sevastopol, sunk or disabled around a third of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, including, of course, that notorious Moskva, forcing the rest into hiding. But as you said, probably only for now. In the first months of 2024, we also saw agricultural exports reach the highest level since the war began once again. Getting grain from Ukraine to those who need it most has been a key British focus, just as we work to disrupt Russia's shadow fleet and increase the cost of Putin's war machine, with the largest ever package of sanctions. In short, the Ukrainians have the will, they have the skills, and indeed they have proved their effectiveness if we back them. The UK will commit at least £3 billion a year for military support to Ukraine, building on the more than £7 billion to date. And of course, we welcome enormously the recent release of funding from the US as well as the EU. But it is up to all of us to make this a priority for as long as it takes for the Ukrainians to prevail. The reality is that we must get on a war footing in order to safeguard peace once again, just as 12 founding NATO nations did 75 years ago when they gathered in Washington, D.C. after that conflict that had engulfed the globe for a second time in a generation. We can be proud to be sending some 20,000 UK personnel to the enormous exercise Steadfast Defender with our carrier strike group out in full force. And if all NATO countries were to commit at least 2.5% of their GDP to defence when we all meet in Washington this summer, as we in the UK are now committed to do, then our collective budget would increase by more than £140 billion. But it's not just a commitment for meeting a future figure. It's about upping the pace on investing now in our defence industrial partners, because then we really will be changing gear, enabling our defence industries, their innovation, their people, to invent, to build, to weld, to innovate, to give us the hardware and the software our armed forces need in order to protect more than 1 billion people across the NATO family and that global security from those malign actors who have been investing at an incredible rate. And for too long, we have just been watching. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not all about NATO, it's not all about maritime capability, and there's only so far that money can go. There is more that we can and must do to build more partnerships and achieve greater coordination. And as I said last year, gunning for interoperability and interchangeability is a no-brainer. So there is more that we can and must do to send that clear, unequivocal, united signal to our adversaries that we will stand up for our values and our freedoms, that they will not grind us down, nor will they wear us out or divide us. So we must make good on our word. It will be mission critical to deterrence, which is effective in keeping that peace because it's credible. And those who would wish us harm need to know that. Be it in the Ukraine or anywhere else, if we allow our word to be shot down by tyrants and chancellors, we send every adversary the signal that it's open season on all that we hold dear. And in so doing, we would be gambling every gain hard won, not only of the rules to which we've all signed up, but of the tacit good faith treaties on which we rely to hold the fragile peace. So we must do all that we can to stack the odds in our favour. The future is not guaranteed. It's up to all of us to write the next chapter together. Governments can and must provide the money and the leadership, but only industry can give us the tools to enable our brave military personnel to deliver that credible deterrence, that denial capability, or indeed that frontline defence, should it be necessary. Because that safe and secure, peaceful and prosperous world that we wish for all our children does not come free. Thank you.